All right, welcome to Ethan Skolnick's starting five, sort of the early morning edition, the very early morning edition of Five on the Floor here on the Five Reasons YouTube channel. If you're listening to this on the Five on the Floor feed, that's why this is going to sound a little bit different. We are sponsored here by our friend Manny Chang. Not sponsored, I'm sorry. We are produced by our friend Manny Chang. See, it's early morning. Although Manny wants to sponsor us too, we can do that. We are sponsored by our friends over at All Pro Construction Builders. You can find them at allproconstructionbuilders.com. Quality is their specialty. Protecting you from hurricanes, that's their specialty too. Hurricane season, believe it or not, has already started. We don't have all the named storms scaring us yet, but we will soon. It's already close to July at this stage, and so make sure that you reach out to Danny and his team and get the hurricane windows, get the storm windows, the storm doors. But also, you may just want to be living in your house for a little bit longer because you can't find a house out there because the real estate market is so tight at this stage. Why not renovate your house? He can do that for you too. He and his entire team. Mention Five Reasons when you call. His personal number, 305-484-4429. That's 305-484-4429. Or again, check out allproconstructionbuilders.com or allproconstructionbuilders on Instagram. They use American products, locally made products. They're based in Dade County, but they can service everywhere down in Monroe or up here where I live in Broward. So get those storm windows now. Do not wait. You need storm windows for the top of your head right now. All right, we've got Greg Sylvander here with me. You can follow him at Greg Sylvander. He's not wearing a hat. This is a special treat that we've got today. Neither am I. We've got about the same amount of hair. Did we lose any hair last night, Greg, over what happened with Jaime Jaquez Jr. being drafted by the Miami Heat, 18th overall? Of course, there was no Dame Lillard trade to this stage. It seems like we're going to be, I keep saying this, Dame and the Blazers are waiting to see if they see their shadows. We're looking for another 2 weeks at this. Dame is going to allow them, I guess, to see if they can build a contending team around him. Then he'll decide, or maybe he won't decide. Maybe he'll say he'll give him to the trade deadline. Maybe he'll say he'll give him to the year 2042. So the Heat are continuing to do business as they sort of await what happens with that situation. But I will give you credit on this. You were the first anywhere that I saw that had the Heat working out Jaquez Jr. We did speak to Adam Simon last night. He talked specifically about that workout. We'll get to that in a second. Why do you think that this was the pick?
I think because, to your point, the Dame stuff is probably going to be he's going to give Portland the very beginning of the moratorium, I bet, to like see what they can get done as trades start to fly. And then if you don't see a big name head there, I think that the block is going to get hot, as they say. But they took this player because, independent of all of that, they need to also operate to fill this roster. And I think that this is a player, and there were great questions asked by a lot of people to Adam Simon last night. I watched that press conference. Alex, Brady, you all got in questions that were good ones. And I think that unlike the Jovic pick, where they kind of understood he was not ready at that moment, Adam Simon kind of acknowledged that this is a guy that could play right away. I reached out to a source to kind of get an idea of like past players, like give me an idea, because everyone's like he patterns his game off Jimmy and that's his favorite player. But come on, folks, like for us to like say he's Jimmy Butler as a player comp, that doesn't do it for me. But what I did get, and this was from a pretty well placed source, was that think of it like his upside is if Tobias Harris and Rick Fox were to merge as a game. That's like essentially the type of player that he could be, where he maybe not be the best ISO defender, but you can work him into a team concept. He can be really adept at doing ISO stuff offensively, but also finding his way. And he also is just going to grit his way to finding his way into being a good enough defender. So I think it's a Miami Heat pick. They're going to keep it. They're going to integrate him into this roster. They're going to need low cost talent that also is attractive to others, because I looked around at mock drafts and there were plenty of mock drafts that had him mocked to Portland, frankly. So just as an idea. So I think that a lot of teams liked him. Miami liked him most, and they signaled this from the get-go. And there's another guy in particular that they got on the undrafted side, or the after the draft side, that they also targeted. But Jaime Jaquez is a perfect fit, and I think Heat fans should be excited about the pick.
All right, we'll get to the other guy in a second. A couple things that are coming in on the comments so we can try to address them. What position is he going to play? Adam Simon said he can play both forward spots, which of course freaked out some Heat fans because it's the whole undersized 4 thing. But again, I don't really think that the Heat look at that forward position as one or the other at this stage. So
it's two wings or forwards out there,
pretty much. We know how Spo likes to use these guys. So I mean, he used Ariza as a 4. He's used plenty of guys, Tucker as a 4, etc.
And Jimmy's one of them.
And Jimmy is one of them. Jimmy plays 2, 3, 4, and 1 at times, and Spo even threw him in at 5 a couple times in some schemes. So yes, I don't think the position thing matters. I think what matters here, 2 things that you said that I think matter. One is they need cost-controlled talent at this stage, because if you look at their situation up against the second apron tax, which Barry Jackson did a very good job of outlining last night, while he was eating the rest of the pizza, because they only gave us 3 boxes last night. So obviously they're saving money on the luxury tax with what they pay to Big Cheese or whoever it is that they go down there. But basically they're very up against the second apron, and so he's going to make $3.5 million, which is in this day and age cost-controlled talent. So I do think that it's somebody that they're going to keep because, again, and you get to the question that I asked Adam, which I said, last year you went after Jovic, who was the youngest player in the draft, or one of them. And this year you took one of the oldest players in the draft. And he then said, well, you guys kind of knew the 10 guys that we were targeting. There were sort of 10 guys in a basket. So, yeah, I'll give you the credit for that. We did. Yeah, you did have the guys on this. And look, and we'll get to why they maybe didn't take somebody who I don't think they were targeting, who slipped to them. But he said, essentially, we had about 10 guys in that particular basket, and most of them were 19 years old. So I don't think that they were necessarily targeting somebody who was older, at least based on what he was saying. And Adam's not the type to kind of lie at these post-draft pressers. That they don't tell you much beforehand. But I think when the opportunity came up to take somebody who they think can play right away, and the other thing is they're going to have both in summer league, and this kid's going to be 2 years older, or 3 years older than Jovic is. But Jovic is going to have a year in Heat development. It's going to be interesting to see kind of which emerges, again, if Jovic is still here, which we don't know because we don't know if there's going to be a trade before then. So a lot of moving parts, but he has every bit as good a chance to play as Jovic does this season because he is older, because he did play to his senior season at UCLA, and he played in big games at UCLA, which the Heat have targeted that kind of player before, and sometimes they regretted it when they haven't. I always go back to the Jameer Nelson Passover when they went for Darrell Wright. Again, 2 ends of that spectrum. Darrell was 18. Jameer Nelson, I think, was 21 or 22 at that stage. It played heavy minutes for St. Joe's in the tournament. They passed on Jameer because they had kind of a younger team, and then they made the trade for Shaq, and they became an older team. Well, not an older team, but they did, but also a team that was competing for a championship right away. And they could have used Jameer, but the pick had been made already. In this case, I think this was a 2-track move. I think that if they stick with the current team, Jaquez Jr. could play right away. And if they go to a team that is even more trying to win a championship right now because they go the all-in move for Dame, but they keep Jaquez Jr., they're going to need the cost-control talent, and so he serves a purpose that way. So I think they sort of viewed it in both contexts. Now, if you want more of a deep dive on the player, Brady and Alex got into him yesterday and on the podcast, and that actually just posted, and that'll be on the YouTube channel here as well. And both of them, Greg kind of talked about what you did defensively, but also, offensively, his experience as an ISO guy. And everybody's like, well, they're not going to be icing up a rookie here in these kind of situations. But here's the counter to Heat fans who are like, well, how is this guy going to play with Jimmy and Bam? Because he operates in some of the same parts of the floor. I don't think this is about playing with Jimmy and Bam. I think it's about having a guy off the bench when Jimmy and Bam are not playing. And we saw last year the non-Jimmy and Bam minutes were horrific for most of the season. And I think this gives them another option who at least has scorer's instincts, which is not something that their other bench guys, most of them had. I think that's something that they were looking for.
Super great point. And also this soundbite that at one time was valid, but is no longer valid, is the Heat don't play their rookies anyway. Because
Yeah.
depending on the situation, rookies have been highly involved in what they've done in recent runs, dating back to the bubble and such, with Kendrick Nunn getting such a run.
Even before
Not
that,
yeah,
2006, 2015 with Josh and Justice too.
correct. So they do play their rookies at times, but there's also times where they realize they're not quite ready yet and they don't play them at all. I think that this is going to be a situation where they try to get him run, maybe not as a primary rotation guy initially, but I think that what I like about that is that if a play breaks down, it's nice to have a player that's a role player that could maybe make a move and get a shot. And like the one thing he does with such superior footwork is he can get to a spot and get up a shot. And so like, I like that ability from him. I think that the defensive stuff, as long as he comes with high energy, they're going to figure out a way for him to work. And I saw one thing in the comments here that I do want to address, because on the stream last night, I mentioned that Houston kind of was offering up KJ Martin and pick 20 for 18. And from what I understand, Golden State, because they just took Chris Paul, it was not clear that they would go with such a smaller player, and they ended up taking Podzinski, which was a small guard.
19, right.
So like I think that just all parties involved weren't convinced that maybe Jaime would slip, so they just took the guy that they liked. They weren't going to play around with this and get cute. So I just wanted to clarify that for one of the comments that came in here live.
Yeah, no doubt. A lot of other good comments are coming in here, so I'll try to go through some of them as we go forward. Let's address this one first, which is the two names that have been brought up as, okay, why didn't they take these guys? One we thought would be there and ended up, I think, going, 25th or 27th, something along those lines, which was Prosper from Marquette, and the other one was Whitmore from Villanova. Two different stories, because Prosper was a fast riser up through the draft, and Whitmore was a dropper through the draft, but they're from two of the schools that the Heat tend to like players the most, which is Villanova and Marquette, and they were both sitting there. So can you explain, I guess, to people why they would not take Whitmore when he slipped all the way to 18, and also why they would not take Prosper when he's somebody that we talked about a lot before the draft?
I asked around late last night, and obviously when it's late, people get a little punch drunk, but I guess I'll say this. They didn't really have Cam Whitmore as a viable option on the board. There were a lot of red flags there, and it had a lot, like the medical stuff is one thing, but also just from the perspective of that his fatal flaw is like the
You trying to say competitiveness without saying it? Is that
the white side thing, not being a jokester, but like, you know how he used to, or Michael Beasley, and not the jokester. You know how they get lost on defense?
Yeah.
And it drives him crazy.
That's why Yurt didn't play.
That's Whitmore. So like, he was not really an option. Now the other guy you mentioned was Omax. Yeah. They loved Omax. I just think when they have their big board and they have guys in order, they probably had Jaime as a guy who could come in and contribute more, especially if they lose guys that have provided offense. Hint that they need a guy maybe that is a little bit more ready to do that than Omax is at this current moment. And they also have faith that they can have Haywood Highsmith defending players in a way Omax is kind of billed as. Whereas they needed a guy with maybe a little bit more of a diverse offensive skill set. So I think he was just probably higher on their board overall.
A second straight year that they've leaned offense in the draft, actually, which hasn't typically been their thing. But it is what you say. That there was a flip before last year, and we talked about it, about their idea was, okay, maybe it's better to take the guy with the offensive skill set and try to teach him defense than take the defensive guy and try to give him offense. Which, again, they've done that with some of their undrafteds, like Haywood Highsmith and Magruder, and there's a long list of those. So we'll see. This question comes in from Markel. Do you guys see a Kyle Anderson in Jaime? I without watching him much, I don't know that anybody could play as slow as Kyle Anderson.
He's
But
faster than he is.
yeah, but he did say something yesterday, which is interesting. He said, "I've learned you have to you kind of have to slow the game down a little bit when you get to that level." That comment comes up. He reminds me of Bird. I'm assuming we mean Birdman and not Larry Bird because
Kevin O'Connor said he's reminiscent and has shades of Kevin McHale, which I think is just hilarious. But there you go.
Okay,
that's a visual.
Well, the other visuals, people are saying their summer league team is going to look like the like the '50s Celtics.
They're going to be awesome.
Who does Jaime make more expendable? This comes in from our guy, Coach Rochester. Caleb or Max? The shooting set is Sean. No, the shooting set is not like Max.
No.
So yeah, I mean,
he could take Max's spot in a rotation, but they would have to be using them differently, and there'd have to be another player inserted that could shoot, and maybe that'll be Duncan. We'll see. Yeah. But they don't replace skill sets, but they could replace each other in a rotation thing. But Caleb Martin is entrenched in whatever they're doing, and this guy has nothing to do with what
unless he's the guy that is one of the guys that goes for Dame, because we do know that Washington asked for him. I do want to get to a sponsor, and then we're going to close with the undrafted guy here, so that we can kind of explain a little bit more about him, because we didn't get a chance to do that on the podcast last night. I want to mention our friend Jonathan Chung, Dr. Jonathan Chung at Chiropractic Keystone, or Keystone Chiropractic. You can find him at chiropractickeystone.com. If you've got back pain, neck pain, anything along those lines, our guy John Chung can help you out. He's also a huge Miami sports fan. It seems like all of our sponsors are, aren't they? John's also a great guy, been a huge supporter of the network from the very beginning. He's based out in sort of the Wellington area, but he can do the telehealth consultations as well at an affordable price right there on Zoom or one of those things that we use here. So you can check you out that way. He's got a new sports vision training program that's used by athletes like Steph Curry. Reach out to him at chiropractickeystone.com. That's chiropractickeystone.com, specializing in chronic pain, dizziness, and post-concussion syndrome. He's a board-certified chiropractic and chiropractic neurology. So Dr. Jonathan Chung makes me say the tongue twisters here early in the morning, but also somebody that you should definitely reach out to if you have neck or back pain of any kind. chiropractickeystone.com. All right. Tell me about the undrafted guy that they wanted and they got.
So there's a number of undrafted guys they got, but we're not going through them all here because we're not doing that long of a show. But the player that I do want to talk about specifically is Justin Powell, and he's agreed to an Exhibit 10 contract. And this is a player that I know in early June that they were already targeting as somebody that maybe would slip past the draft and that they would immediately go and get. He shot 42% from three last year on 5 attempts per Matt Hanna fan who tweeted that out. But I just want to mention him because I know for a fact that the Heat have expressed interest. I know that in the days leading up to the draft, there was absolute communication letting him know that, like, the moment that the draft passes, we want you in our program. And it's identifying a skill set, Ethan. He is a sniper. He can do some more things. He's a playmaker also, but he is a sniper. He can shoot from everywhere. And so I think that they're identifying their next maybe sharpshooter type potential player. I don't want to put too much of that on him because I think that becomes unfair, but they did churn out Duncan. They did churn out Max, and I've tended to be ahead of the curve on these things. And I do not mean to pat myself on the back, but I think that he's going to stick and he's going to get a chance for a two-way contract of some kind in summer league. So watch for that. Justin Powell, and that was the one guy of the undrafted players that they signed last night. And there were a few others, which we won't go through now. We'll save that for another episode of 5 on the Floor, that I think Heat fans should read up about, watch highlight clips, because I think he could stick.
All right. So check him out. Also check out the episode of 5 on the Floor that I did with Alex and Brady in the wee hours of the morning last night at the arena. We will have more on Jaime Jaquez Jr. as we go forward and everything that went into the pick. And, of course, look, we're waiting on Dame, and we're going to see what happens there. I did think it was interesting. Chris Haynes did not tweet for more than 4 hours last night. It's like everybody's waiting on Haynes. I'm going to get Haynes on the pod, I promise. Everybody is waiting on Haynes to tweet. And
It's
then it seemed
coming,
like it was
y'all.
going this other direction. And then all of a sudden, about 1:30 in the morning, he kind of threw it back out there again, which again seems to me like a message from Dame that, like, don't believe everything you hear. Things are not perfect at the moment. I just don't know if Dame's ever going to make that call officially. We will see. Yeah, I know you're saying Dame time. It's time for Dame. Just ask out already. End our misery. We got till July 9th. We'll see what happens at that point. But obviously, we've been reporting stuff related on. Check out Off the Floor. We've been reporting stuff related to Tyler Hero and others, and kind of what may be playing out here. But again, a lot of it is, it's not just, it's beyond our control. It's beyond the Heat's control. They're waiting on Dame and Portland collectively and individually to make a decision. And this is what Dean Millard says. We'll close with this. What Woj said last night. It sounds like Portland's going to hold Dame hostage until Dame makes the call himself.
Posturing.
I just think it's posturing on all sides at this stage. Again, know your reporters, and I'm not talking about us, your national reporters, and who's speaking for who, and who typically tweets out the stuff that nothing's going to happen because it's somebody trying to get something to happen, if you understand. This perfect way to end. Broham, can't wait for Reggie Miller to reference our new players as the undrafted. Well, Jaquez is drafted. We'll see if he references him next year. All right. Thanks to Manny for producing. Thanks to Keystone Chiropractic. Check them out if you have neck or back pain. And of course, allproconstructionbuilders.com. I'm sure I'll be getting the text from Danny any minute here, but get your storm windows. We know South Florida can be perilous as we get into the fall, and it's not just because of the drivers. Have a good day, everybody.